That was the question my grandfather asked me on my 27th birthday, right before the room went silent and the air felt too thick to breathe. I remember blinking at him, thinking maybe I misheard, maybe the champagne got to my head, maybe he was joking. But my grandfather never jokes about money. I felt my throat tighten as every pair of eyes at the table turned toward me. My mom's smile froze. My dad coughed into his napkin. Even the candles on the cake seemed to flicker differently. I swallowed and whispered, almost afraid of my own voice. "Grandpa, what trust fund?" That was the moment everything in my life began to crack open. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss stories like this one. Before that night, I thought my life was normal enough. Not glamorous, not tragic, just average. I grew up in a comfortable middle-class home in Maryland. Dad worked in real estate. Well, part-time real estate, full-time ego. Mom was the sweet, smiling type who liked to host brunches even when our bank account didn't agree. We had the kind of family that dressed nicely for church, but fought in low voices inside the car. I worked as a junior graphic designer at a small agency. The kind of job where the coffee machine breaks every Monday, but everyone pretends to love each other because the office is too small for enemies. Money was always tight. I lived in a walk-up apartment with thin walls where you could hear your neighbor sneeze like he was right next to you. Some months I had to choose between paying the electric bill or my student loans on time. I didn't have a car, just an old bike with a squeaky wheel. And the strange thing is I never once questioned it. I never imagined I was supposed to have access to anything more. Certainly not millions. But my grandfather, he was different. He was old school wealthy, sharp suits, heavy cufflinks, a voice that could cut through any lie. He built his business from scratch, started with a single hardware store, and turned it into a statewide chain. He wasn't the warm and cuddly grandpa type, but he loved me in a quiet, steady way. He'd show up at my piano recitals. He'd send birthday cards with handwritten notes. And after my mom and dad fought, he was the one who called to check in on me. Still, he never talked about money around me. So hearing that he'd set up a trust fund, a massive one, for me was something I couldn't even process. My birthday dinner that night was supposed to be simple. Just family, a few close friends, a cake with too much frosting. Instead, it turned into something cold and unfamiliar. Because when I said, "What trust fund?" my grandfather's smile faded in a way I had never seen before. He leaned forward slowly, like he needed to study my face. "I had your parents open a trust for you when you were 16, he said. "I deposited money every year. It should have matured by now. Don't tell me you haven't been accessing it." My stomach dropped. I shook my head. "Grandpa, I swear I don't know anything about it." Across the table, my mother let out this tiny, choking sound, something between a gasp and a warning. My father placed his hand on hers. He didn't look at me. Not once. Something about that made me feel small, like a child again, like I was missing something that everyone else already knew. Grandpa's brows pulled together. "Have you checked your statements? Your accounts? Someone should have notified you." I felt heat rush up my neck. I didn't want to have this conversation in front of everyone, but there was no way out. "I only have one account," I said quietly. "And it barely has enough for rent." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut the birthday cake in half. My grandfather turned toward my parents with a look that could freeze fire. But my dad spoke first. His voice was too casual, too controlled. "Dad, maybe there's been a misunderstanding. You know how these things work. Banks mess up all the time." My grandfather didn't blink. "I don't make $3.4 million misunderstandings." My mom squeezed my dad's hand so hard her knuckles turned white. She looked everywhere except at me. My chest tightened with something I didn't have a name for yet. Fear, confusion, embarrassment, all tangled together. That night, after we blew out the candles and people left with forced smiles, my grandfather asked me to come to his study. It was a small room with dark wood walls and old leather books. The smell always reminded me of time, old, stubborn, unchanging. He closed the door and spoke in a quiet voice. "Sweetheart, I need you to check your financial records. Every account, every statement. I want to know exactly what you've been told, and what you haven't." I nodded, but I could barely breathe. I felt like the floor under me wasn't stable anymore. like something enormous had been hiding in my life for years, and I had been walking over it without knowing. As I left his house that night, my mom grabbed my arm in the driveway. Her fingers dug into my skin. She whispered, "Don't make a big deal out of this. It's not what you think." But her voice shook, just enough for me to feel a chill run down my spine. Later, when I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at my bank app. I checked every tab, every number. Nothing. Not even a hint of trust fund energy. Just the same depressing balance that had been mocking me for years. And that's when a memory hit me. One I hadn't thought about in ages. A Saturday morning 6 years ago. Dad in his study with the door half closed. Papers spread across his desk. Mom standing behind him, whispering urgently. My name on a document they quickly flipped over when I walked in. Back then I thought it was about college forms or tax papers. Now I wasn't so sure. Something in my chest twisted as I realized this wasn't just a mix-up. This wasn't a bank error. Something deeper was going on. Something that had been hidden from me for a long, long time. And for the first time that night, I felt the first spark of a suspicion that would soon become a wildfire. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my grandfather's face, confusion turning into disappointment, disappointment turning into something sharper. And my parents. The way they avoided my eyes. The way my mom's hand trembled when she grabbed my arm. By morning, I felt a tension in my chest like I was carrying something too heavy for my ribs to hold. I decided I needed answers. Real answers. Not the half-truths my parents liked to decorate and serve like polite appetizers. So I started where anyone would start: old documents. I biked to my childhood home that afternoon. My parents weren't expecting me, which was exactly what I wanted. Mom opened the door with a tight smile. "Oh, honey, we weren't expecting company." She said company, like I was a tax auditor. Dad walked in behind her, adjusting his watch, avoiding my eyes. I forced a smile. "I just need to grab some old files from my room." My mom's face twitched. Just a small twitch. But enough. "Which files?" she asked too quickly. "I'll find them," I said, brushing past her. Their house smelled the same as always. Fresh lemon polish on the furniture, vanilla candles burning too strong in the hallway. Mom loved covering up scents, even the bad ones. I walked straight to Dad's study. My heart was pounding, but I tried to breathe evenly. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything was neat, too neat. My dad never kept his desk this organized unless he was hiding something. I scanned the room. Drawers, a locked cabinet, a stack of folders. I went for the folders first. Most were normal bills, property papers, insurance forms. Then I found it. A thin folder labeled with a single letter, my first initial. A cold chill ran down my arms. I opened it. Inside were printed bank statements. But not from any account I knew. Not my checking account. Not my savings. This was something different. The statements were from a trust account. Under my name, my mouth went dry. The earliest statement was from 11 years ago when I was 16. The numbers were sharp, clean, almost unreal. Yearly deposits, huge ones, in amounts only my grandfather would think were normal birthday gifts. A 200,000, 350,000, 500,000, 300,000, some years larger, some smaller. I felt my heart race faster with every page. Then I reached the last statement. But instead of numbers in the millions, it showed something else. Something that made my hands shake. Balance 0.so doers. My vision blurred for a second. 0, 0, 0. My parents' voices drifted faintly from the kitchen, laughing awkwardly, forcing normalcy. I swallowed hard and kept reading. The withdrawal history hit like a punch to the throat. Over the years, not one big cash out, not one mistake, not one emergency, but dozens of withdrawals. Small enough to avoid attention, large enough to drain everything. Trips labeled as educational expenses. Payments marked as housing. Transfers labeled family necessities. I whispered, "Oh my God," because these weren't my expenses. They were theirs. Every withdrawal connected to my parents' life, my dad's, business trips, my mom's kitchen remodel, their anniversary vacation to Hawaii, the new SUV they claimed they leased, the unexpected surgery bill. I never saw paperwork, for it was all there, right in front of me, page after page of betrayal. My knees felt weak. I had to sit down. I stared at the documents, trying to steady my breath. Something inside me cracked open. Not anger. Not yet. It was grief. A deep, heavy grief I didn't know where to put. Because what kind of parents steal from their child? What kind of parents let their daughters struggle with rent, with loans, with bills, while sitting on her money, my money, money meant for my future, money my grandfather trusted them to protect? My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Grandpa. I made some calls this morning. We need to talk. My fingers trembled as I typed back. I found something too. Before I could reread what I wrote, the door to the study swung open. My dad stood there, his face pale, his jaw tight. "What are you doing in here?" he asked. His tone wasn't confused, it wasn't gentle, it was defensive. I held up the folder. "What is this?" His eyes went directly to the papers. He didn't even pretend not to know. He closed the door behind him slowly. The click of the lock echoed like a warning. "You shouldn't go through my things," he said. "It's my trust fund," I whispered. "MY money. MY future. And it's gone. All of it." He exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. For a moment, I saw something soft flicker in his expression. Something like shame. But then he hardened. "You don't understand the pressure we were under," he snapped quietly. "You don't know what it takes to keep a family afloat, to maintain a certain reputation. A reputation." My voice cracked. "I biked to work, Dad. I lived paycheck to paycheck. I ate ramen for dinner. I thought we were struggling." "We are struggling," he cut in. "We did what we had to do. You stole from me," I whispered. He looked away. "It's complicated." "No," I said, shaking my head. "It's simple. You took everything." He opened his mouth but stopped. His jaw tightened again. "You're being dramatic," he said finally. "We were going to tell you. Eventually." I laughed, one sharp, ugly sound. Eventually. When? After another kitchen remodel, another luxury trip. His face flushed. "You don't talk to me like that in my house." "It's not just your house," I shot back. It was paid with MY money. His silence was the loudest answer he'd ever given me. Then Mom appeared behind him, eyes wide, face pale. "Honey, please," she whispered. "Let's just calm down. We didn't mean." "You didn't mean to get caught," I said. She flinched. Dad stepped forward, placing himself between me and the door, and suddenly the room felt too small. "You need to drop this," he said quietly. "Before things get ugly." That was the moment something inside me shifted. The fear faded, the confusion cleared. All that was left was truth. Cold, sharp, undeniable. "I'm not dropping anything," I said. "I'm calling Grandpa." Dad's eyes widened. "No." But it was too late. My phone was already ringing. My grandfather's voice came through the phone before my dad could grab it out of my hand. "Evelyn, are you safe?" I stared at my parents. My father frozen in the doorway, my mother whispering, "No, no, no," under her breath. "Yes," I said quietly. "But we need to talk, now." My grandfather didn't hesitate. "Come to my house." Immediately. "I'm already leaving." I brushed past my dad. He reached out like he might stop me. But something in my face must have warned him not to. For the first time in my life, he backed away. I walked out the front door without another word. My hands shook the entire drive to Grandpa's. I wasn't angry, anger is loud. What I felt was quieter, heavier, like carrying a broken promise in my chest. When I arrived, my grandfather was waiting outside on the porch, leaning on his cane. His expression was carved from stone. Inside, he led me to his study, the same room where he'd asked me about the trust fund just days earlier. "Tell me everything," he said. And I did. I told him about the locked drawer, the secret folder, the withdrawals, the lies disguised as family expenses, the kitchen remodels, vacations, debt payments. I watched his jaw clench tighter with every detail. When I finished, he sat down slowly, like the truth weighed more than he expected. "I trusted them," he said quietly. "I gave them responsibility because I thought they'd protect you." I swallowed the lump in my throat. I thought they cared about me more than appearances. He looked at me then, with the kind of sadness men like him rarely show. "They failed you," he said, "and they will answer for it." "What do we do?" I whispered. He didn't blink. "We tell the truth?" The legal process took months. Painful months. Every receipt, every purchase, every lie dragged into the light. My dad's reputation in the community crumbled. My mom stopped showing her face at neighborhood events. But that wasn't the revenge. The real revenge was something quieter. It was the peace that came from finally understanding my truth. My grandfather set up a new trust, one they could never touch again, this time directly in my name. He helped me buy a small condo, nothing flashy. Just a place with sunlight, quiet mornings, and a front door that locked from inside, not outside. We grew closer, and for the first time, I began to see myself not as the girl who struggled, but as someone worth protecting. As for my parents, I forgave them eventually, not because they deserved it, but because carrying anger is like holding a burning coal and expecting the other person to get burned. Forgiveness wasn't a reunion. It was just letting go. I chose distance, boundaries, peace, and piece by piece, my life started to rebuild itself. Some days I still hear my grandfather's voice asking that question. How do you spend your $3.4 million trust fund? A question that shattered my world, but also rebuilt it in a way I never expected. Now I ask you, if you discovered your parents secretly drained your entire future, what would you do? Would you confront them? Would you forgive them? Would you walk away? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment so you don't miss more stories like this.